अस्सलाम वालेकुम ख़वातीन और हज़रात। पस-ए-आईना के मुलाकातों के सिलसिले का आज पहला प्रोग्राम हम लेकर हाजिर हैं। हमारी आज की मेहमान आलमी शोहरत याफ्ता अदीबा हैं। इनकी किताबें दुनिया की बेशतर ज़बानों में तर्जुमा की गई हैं। 1991 में सितारा इम्तियाज हासिल कर चुकी हैं। यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ ह्यूस्टन, राइस और कोलंबिया यूनिवर्सिटी में दर्स व तदरीस के फ़राइज़ अंजाम देती रही हैं। इनकी किताबों पर फिल्में बन चुकी हैं। इन्होंने अपने कलम से 3 नस्लों को मुतासिर किया है। इन्होंने अंग्रेजी ज़बान में फिक्शन और नॉन फिक्शन के बीच खिंची हद फासिल को मिटा दिया है। इनके किरदार हकीकी, इनके मंजर तारीखी, इनके फ़िक्रे दिलसोज और इनकी कहानियों के अंजाम नाकाबिले फरामोश हैं। Ladies and gentlemen, this is the point where I'm going to switch to English, as my honorary guest today is the eminent English writer, Bapsi Sidhwa. Her body of work comprises of novels, short stories, and anthologies. She has related to us the stories of partition and of everyday happenings of a woman's life with equal grace and composure. From her first book, The Crow Eaters, in 1978, to her latest work, Their Language of Love, 2013, Bapsi's illustrious writing career spans over almost 40 years, and it is far from over. Her prose is like a brook that keeps going at an amazingly consistent flow. She has most magnificently blurred the line between fiction and non-fiction. The genius of her storytelling makes all her characters real. Her settings and situations defy the so-called history we are taught to believe. It is my privilege to welcome Bapsi Sidhwa to my show. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
God bless you. Thank you, my darling. I love you. What a gorgeous introduction. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes.
I'm so grateful for you to making time for this and talking to us. I hope you're feeling well today.
I'm feeling fine.
You can speak 3 languages in addition to English. Yeah. I believe Gujarati, Urdu, and Punjabi. Were you ever tempted to write in any of those languages?
Not really, because I was not able. I mean, my grandmother tried to teach me Gujarati, and I didn't have the aptitude. And then we had a Masterji who used to come and teach my brother Minu and myself Urdu. And we just had fun teasing him and pulling his hat off and pulling his, shalwar and all that sort of thing. So we didn't learn any Urdu. Although my brother has become proficient in Urdu, I speak well. I speak a little bit of Punjabi, but fluent Urdu. But when it comes to writing, it is only in English. Great. I wish I could write in some other language. Urdu is so beautiful. The calligraphy of Urdu is so attractive. I wish I could have done more.
Great, but you have done a great job in what you have undertaken. I have to say this.
Thank you.
Okay, when you were writing your first draft of the first book, The Crow Eaters, in 1978, did you ever had self-doubt? If yes, how did you deal with it?
You know, well, I came back from the mountains. I'd gone there on my honeymoon, and I'd heard the story. The major had recited the story of the little girl. I was in those mountains, in that glorified atmosphere where the Indus was at my feet, and we were looking at these magnificent Karakorams. And when I came back, I felt a compulsion to write, first of all, this girl's story, and then again describe the scenery. I mean, the scenery was like a character itself, you know. The river was a character, the mountains were a character, and in my books, there are characters. And I straight away wrote an article for the Civil and Military Gazette. It used to be a newspaper that used to exist then, about the mountains, and they published it. I have one of the copies of it, you know. And then I had this need to tell this girl's story. I knew I had to tell it. And as I was writing, I mean, I had not written before. I just knew that whatever happened, I would be able to write. I didn't have the means, and somehow I located a thesaurus. Whatever I needed, I found. And I searched the thesaurus diligently for the nuance of each word to give the exact meaning I wanted to give. And, at that time, my mind was, as though it was bright with, it was like it was on fire. And in fact, I used to tell myself, oh, my mind is on fire. It was that present, and I was writing out of that fire. It was just flowing out of that. And of course, I used the dictionary and thesaurus, but these two were my only tools, really, and my computer and my pen. And I wrote a lot of this story when I got the Bunting Fellowship in Cambridge. And I think I wrote An American Brat there, whereas I wrote Ice Candy Man or Cracking India entirely in Pakistan. And an American friend sent it to agent in America. They found Curtis Brown. Nothing much happened then. But then somebody sent it to my agent at Jonathan Cape, Caroline Dorney. And then, of course, the whole world sort of broke out. A strange thing, we were talking of the pissing contest men sort of indulge in. Right. And from the very beginning, I was attacked by this. I wrote an article for in London for a newspaper, I forget now which one. And immediately there was another article making fun of it. That, it mentions that Gandhiji visited Lahore. Gandhiji never visited Lahore. And I knew I'd visited Lahore. And this was, of course, Mr. Salman Rushdie. And then again, it was the minute I started writing, there was sort of at once men writing something that to ridicule it. That, what will she, Bapsi, write? She'll write this sort of rubbish and that sort of rubbish. And this came to a bit of a head when we went, I was published, Faiz Ahmed Faiz read my book and loved it. And he gave it to the Soviet Union publisher somewhere to publish it. And then invited me to Russia. When I went there, the lady, the editor of the book, got in touch with me. And she said, I'm sorry. I wanted to write a very good editorial of what I felt about you. But there are so many men from Pakistan here who hate you and did not let me write a good article. She had to come out and tell me this.
Tell you this.
Yes, that there's so many men here invited by Faiz Saab, but they couldn't stand my presence because they knew I was miles ahead of them. They were writing bits of poetry and bits of essays and bits of short stories. Nobody had written a sustained novel so far, And except, I think, one person who had passed away, I forget his name. And, well, anyway, you had a question.
Thank you so much for giving us this detail. And we had I'm sure, no resource of finding these details elsewhere. And bless your soul for sharing all this. We live in a society where they say, since आप उर्दू समझती हैं, खुलता किसी पे क्यों मेरे दिल का मामला, शेरों के इंतखाब ने रुस्वा किया मुझे. were you ever afraid of being judged as a person on the basis of your writings? Were you ever discomforted by the idea of exposing your inner self way too much?
You know, that didn't really occur to me till the book was published.
Great.
You know, and then suddenly it occurred to me, because my mother, she's the only one who said, "You've written a lot about me and your father, who was passed away." And she spoke, you know, very, she can never be uh, furious, but very stern and angry. She was a very dignified woman. And she just said that, you know, and I felt, oh dear, I've hurt the feelings. And but you know, I felt it's done, and it's done. And of course, I'd written so much about my mother and father.
Yes, yes.
But obviously she had withstood it. And I couldn't help myself. I just, when I write, I feel I owe it to myself to write, to my truth. It's my truth.
Great. No, I believe the truth that you have stated, and you have sort of, the way you have sprinkled the characteristics of your own family around the characters of your books, it gives the readers or the aspiring writers the courage to be truthful to their own lives and to be truthful to the people around them as well. You know, not everything that we write about has to be larger than life. You know,
Right.
People can be true to life as well. So thank you so much for this. So how mindful are you of your feminine identity when you write? Do you think it is important for a female writer to be conscious of societal expectations?
You see, it depends on what you're writing. If you're writing, telling a story, then it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a woman or a man. The story is of paramount importance, the flow of the story you're telling. And naturally, women will come into that because I'm a woman. When I write, there will be women characters, which will be the most important. Of course, I will create men characters, which I have done. And, you know, the whole thing is not to be self-conscious of what others may feel or think. If you are conscious, you cannot write even one paragraph, you know. Yes, because the writing is a compulsion. It's a force within you that is making you write, you know. I feel I don't willfully write as much as it sort of flows. It is written, yeah.
It is written. That's so good. So good. Writing, like so many other fields, was a gentleman's club for the longest time in history. Whether they were gentlemanly or not remains to be discussed later. Of late, we see an alarming amount of foul language in mainstream media. Especially the content coming out of South Asia is packed with swear words and profanities. How can a woman, rather a lady, become a part of this pissing contest?
You know, she need not be a part of this pissing contest, because to use so much profanity just shows a lack of talent. I mean, they don't have anything important to say, so they keep on using profane words, thinking that is what the story is all about. And yes, I read one book about the lunatic asylum, which has so much profanity in it. And there are people who have liked it very much. I found it very repulsive, you know, because it is somebody's, it's like somebody's vomit almost, you know, verbal vomit. I don't want to be exposed to it, but whoever likes it is welcome to it, you know.
True. Thank you so much for explaining it so well to us. Okay. When you set out to write, do you have a list of subjects that you would like to explore? What makes you decide to write on a certain subject? Public demand, marketability, or the sheer desire to tell a particular story?
Of course, the sheer desire to tell a particular story, which I have done, you know. I've written about 4 novels and a collection of short stories. And that is a lot of writing, you know.
That's
each novel is a lot of writing.
Yeah. That's a lot of writing. That's true. And I believe each story is a world of its own.
Yes. Can you rephrase your question again?
Is public demand or marketability a consideration in writing a particular story?
No, naturally, it is just what your brain demands you to say, commands you to say. Yes.
Great. Okay, and now this whole conversation is geared to inspire young writers to write in a particular way and to understand your craft and your way of writing. So this is why so many technical questions which are not present in other interviews. Do you write when you are inspired to write? Or you have a writing discipline, as it is being propagated these days a lot, that you have to have a writing discipline, that you sit down and write at a particular time of a day, every day. What do you do about this?
No, you know, I've always been a mother and a housewife first, and a writer afterwards. And my writing was, especially when I was in this very creative mood, when I wrote Ice Candyman and then Crow Eaters. I mean, my family knew I was writing, and they would sometimes, you know, but I used to write even when we were playing bridge. After all, I was a housewife and a wife of a certain class and marriage. So whenever we were playing bridge, I used to very often, when I was dummy, just come away and write quickly some sentences which were going on in my mind.
Great.
I would write while I was driving, you know, sentences would come to my mind. I would just park and quickly write them, or arrive where I was going and write them down. And jotting down little sentences was like something which was going to be the next paragraph or the next story I wanted to say, the next few words I wanted to say. So I was in a constant state of writing. It wasn't just that I sat down to write. My mind was writing, and then whenever I had a chance, I wrote. I did not have, I wrote mostly at night, on my stomach, in bed, on foolscap sheets, with my pencil, scribbles. Luckily, I had a friend who was a very good typist, Nargis Subani, and I would give her that stuff and she would type it out beautifully, you know.
Right.
And that was a godsend. And then I would send the manuscripts off, you know, for publication. So it was, everything for me turned out that I had this gift and I had all the opportunity to write it down. Yes. But I did, I did not have a certain time to write, but I should have had. But, you know, as a housewife of the nature where the kids went to school and the husband went to work, I did have enough time to sit down and write. And I did write late into the night also.
Great. So do you make an outline or a sketch of the story, or you just write it as it flows? Because this is encouraged these days, that you must have a sketch, a start point, a midpoint, the peak, and then the climax, and then all that.
You know, each writer has to suit themselves to that. For me, I would be inhibited if I were told, write this first or write up to this point. This is ridiculous. You have to leave it to the writer to start where they want, to go to what length they want, you know.
You're right. I feel that. I feel tied up when I'm given those instructions.
Yes, yes.
So if we take a cross section of your characters, and what a great lineup of characters you have across the books. We find them so true to life that it is impossible to believe they do not exist. I really love the character of the old widow in Water who wants to eat a laddu. Was she a fictitious character or was she real?
No, I have to thank Deepa Mehta for it, because she created this character in Water.
Really?
Yes. And while she was making Water, she said, Bapsi, I want you to write the book Water as I'm making it, so that the book will be launched with your book, So every short while she'd shoot the film and send it to me, and I would print it out and rush and write a little bit of the story of it, and create the story. And that is how the whole novel Water turned out. It was a freakish way of doing things. Deepa would it was also very, very stimulating and very exciting to see, now Deepa has done this, now this, now this. And of course, I brought some characters. When I was finishing the book, I included characters which were not Deepa Mehta's in that, because I wanted to make it a book, an actual novel. And but it was such a beautiful, the ideas of Deepa Mehta's film are totally incorporated in Water. And of course, there's my creativity in creating that and introducing a couple of new characters. But I've given the characters that she has created more, authenticity and strength in a written word. She has done that in the cinema. I've tried to do that in the written language.
Great. So it was a collaboration of two great.
Yes, always.
So I think this answers my next question as it is, as all your characters are real, or you make up a few. You do make up a few to carry the storyline, I believe.
Oh yes. No, now if we talk of Croatia, even Cracking India, there are the Aya is more or less made up. Many characters are made up. And I think in Crow Eaters, I have again, the main character is created, based perhaps a little bit on this person, a little bit on that person. But whatever it is, it's become a character all in itself, the main character, Faridun Jangalwala, Freddy for short, And that is a book which I think in which a lot of characters are just fleetingly known, maybe. But I've known the community enough to create these characters and out of an amalgam of creatures, so that they're authentic and true to the book.
That's great. That's great. Especially, I remember one of those, the character in one of your short stories, Jangi Khan. And the way you have described him, and the way this woman all of a sudden finds him standing near the staircase, and the way it was beautifully done.
Oh my goodness, really?
It was beautifully done. And it was like as if I could actually see Jangi Khan standing there, though I have never met him, but it makes the story so real. So real. Although there is a thing in before every.
This is a Candyman?
No. Jangi Khan is in Their Language of Love, one of the short stories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it is beautiful. It is beautiful. So there are, about this writing and learning the craft of writing, there are so many MFA courses and writing workshops that are being offered. Would you recommend any for the aspiring writers?
Well, there are many. I wouldn't for one suggest any one of them, but this is an opportunity for budding writers whose lives are so regimented these days in colleges and at work. And this gives them the opportunity to call themselves writer, that I am a writer and I'm attending a writing workshop and I need time to myself. And this allows them time to themselves in which to write, which is very difficult in our present world for young men. Their lives are really very regimented, aimed at creating food for the family, creating money, basically. And this is sort of a different line, which is difficult for them to keep up with, because public opinion, not so much public opinion as family opinion, would say, what are you doing, wasting your time instead of doing proper work, things like that. But if they're in a MFA program, then of course they have the justification of saying I'm writing and because I'm going to this writing school, I think it works in many ways.
In many ways.
Time to, yes.
Great, great. So in America, Bapsi, there is a lot of stress on mentorship. Did you ever have a mentor in writing?
Mentor, I would say that my editors were mentors in the sense that they would clean up a sentence. They did a great job of that. And they talked to me, but they didn't say write this or write that. That sort of mentorship I never had. My mind was my mentor, So I wrote out of my mind, yes. But yes, certainly my work was smoothed out by my editors. And I had a remarkable editor at Jonathan Cape, Caroline Donne. She was my agent. She also edited it. And oh my God, there was another great editor. Anyway, I'd made a lot of friends, especially when I was in the Bunting Institute at Cambridge. That's where I'd written American Brat. And we used to, in the afternoons, all the ladies, and they were from all parts of Europe and England and all. They would get together. I would be the only one in a sari. And I was good looking then. And
you still are.
I don't know about that. But, I was sort of, I was telling them about that I'm writing this story, American Brat. And they just crowded around me with so many ideas. It was amazing. And I used many of those ideas in finishing my story.
Great, great. So this is a supplementary question. When you started writing, how did your family react? Were they concerned about the public's reaction? Because conscience.
No, family did not react with alarm. They enjoyed my writing, I think. But my mother was alarmed, and she had some people phone her and tell her, do you know what Bapsi's written about you and your husband? And, she had people tell her that. And she was hurt, and she was sort of, but she didn't really say much about it because it was the done deed. And the main thing was to her, my brother Minu was God. And when he visited from Pindi, and she said, look what Bapsi has done, she's written this. And he said, that's fine. She's done a good work, it's fine. Right. And she told me that, no, Minu said it's fine, so it is fine.
So you had everything under control in the home front, at the home front.
Yes.
Great. So considering your experiences of witnessing the partition of India and later on Pakistan and all the tragedies it brought in its wake, were you ever depressed like some of your counterparts? How did you deal with that pain of witnessing all that tragedy?
As a child, I was really, I think, 9 years old at that time. And everything was vivid in my mind. The chanting of the mobs was a constant in my ears, you know, Hare Hare Mahadev and uh, uh, Allahu Akbar, and you know, all the various communities doing their chants. And I was in fact at a friend's house when the house in front had been put on fire, and it was blazing fire, and I was looking at it, and I felt as if it was blood being splattered in the sky. It was frightening to observe that fire so close. And I mean, that gave me an idea of that, how much, you know, when I was writing, something kicks in which gives you knowledge without your being aware of it. And I wrote that Shalmi was on fire, you know, in the walled city. And that was true, although nobody told me that, and I did not know it as far as you know. But when I wrote, it came out truthfully. I didn't write the wrong place. And so often I found this comes from a inner sense which one is not aware of. It's an intuition, but it is of great help to the writer.
True. One more question that considering the work that you have produced and a great body of work, admirable, how would you say the importance of awards, the International Writing Awards? Where would you place it, the importance?
Oh, it is something which young writers who are now young writers are aware of. And it gives them legitimacy at each stage, and it gives them again legitimacy to sit and write, which they need time. It was, to me, ample time was available, you know. But to young writers nowadays, their lives are so regimented, you know, going to college and doing the homework and playing games and, you know, all regimented, that they need this sort of inspiration to give them a chance to write.
And I forgot to mention that thing when we were talking about the tragedies that you have witnessed regarding partition in your short story, when A Gentlemanly War. The thing that really made me wonder was the way you have written about how a man looks at a war and how a woman looks at a war. You know, there are two very different way of looking at the same thing, and you presented both very justifiably. I have to say this. Both were present there.
I'll have to read the short story again.
Okay, no, it was really wonderful.
Thank you.
I loved this selection of short stories that you have put together. And of all the books you have written, do you have a favorite, Bapsi? And if it is, why?
You know, the books are like your children. Each book you have created, you've given it birth. You have nursed it much longer than you'd nurse a child. It's lived with you for so long. So each book is equally precious to one, you know. You can't, it's just the whole writing process is grouped together in all the work. And you can't figure out, of course one can sit down and think, which is the book I mean, I can reread The Crow Eaters and laugh again, you know. I can reread parts of, and I have, of Cracking India, Ice Candy Man, you know, and parts of Water, and again my first novel, yes, Cracking India. I mean, so much has dependent on that. The partition which brought about the change in my city, in Lahore, you know, where things broke apart overnight. people who lived next door to me and in front of me were Hindus. And suddenly those houses were empty. And gradually I found they had been occupied only by seeing windows boarded up. When windows were boarded up, I realized, oh, somebody has occupied this house. And gradually their faces appeared. And then we would go often, my brother and cousin and myself, we would go very often to our roof to look down there, because there was the home for women who were rescued and brought there. And we didn't know that, and we thought these were women in a jail, And as children, you don't know what you're doing. You were just saying, shame, shame, jailbird, whatever, And these women would look up at us and just stare and not say anything, And they would be busy with thalis of rice, cleaning the rice, doing some cooking, doing some, they were all busy doing something. And this gave me an idea afterwards that, oh, these were women who were, because at night I used to use terrible howls and screams. And then afterwards I used to wonder, where is this noise coming from? And then I thought maybe it's coming from this place where the women are sheltered. God knows what all they've been through. I mean, they've all definitely been raped brutally. They may have lost their children, because very brutal things happened, especially to women during partition. I mean, men were killed, they were tortured, but women were brutalized much worse.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I've just lost track. Yes, it is so tragic, and it is even more tragic when we see how lightly the fruit of partition is taken by masses, by people everywhere, and if it's not valued the way it should be valued.
Which is very true, It is not valued that this home has been fought for, and the amount of bloodshed it has created, not only the partition of India and Pakistan, but again of Pakistan and Bangladesh, where each country, Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, was created simultaneously when the British departed, and each of them were created with a great deal of bloodshed. And the British knew this. They were aware this would happen. They could have taken measures to prevent it, kept armies on alert, done something. But they were careless.
They just chose to be bystanders.
Pardon?
They chose to be just bystanders.
Not only bystanders, looters. Their mind was preoccupied by looting things from various museums, from various houses. They wanted to take away the treasures, the jewelry. When they left, they had looted so much stuff with them. It was just a free-for-all. And then they left India and Pakistan and Bangladesh to themselves, helpless. None of them had armies. None of them knew how to defend themselves. They each had the small body of soldiers which was left to them. India, of course, was the massive country then.
True. If you were to give an advice to the aspiring writer, female writer in particular, what would it be?
Well, if you have the urge to write, make the time to write it down, to jot it down, even if it's late at night. Or you can just tell, be firm and say, look, I'm writing and I got to have this time and this space. Carve it out for yourself. I mean, if you're, of course, at a stage very busy with children, you cannot sometimes afford to write then. But when they're grown up or growing up and going to school, certainly you can make some time. Because the writing urge, if it is strong, will compel you to do such things, you know, and take every opportunity you get to write, even if it's a little. Even, if it is just what I say, automatic writing, just scribbling, whatever comes into your mind, because that releases something and then makes you write something else.
True. Bapsi, it has been such a treat talking to you. And before I let you go, I would just request if you could read to us an excerpt from any of your writings, that you particularly like yourself.
Oh, yes, I'd love to read. Fabi?
Yes, ma'am.
Give me my Crow Eater's book. I'll read a passage from that. There we go.
Irshad.
Ji. Faridun Jangalwala, Freddy for short, was a strikingly handsome, dulcet-voiced adventurer with so few scruples that he not only succeeded in carving a comfortable niche in the world for himself, but he also earned the respect and gratitude of the entire Parsi community. When he died at 65, a majestic gray-haired patriarch, he attained the rare distinction of being locally listed in the Zartushti calendar of great men and women. So he was a rascal, a charming rascal. And he was mentioned in this book, which means that every time a jashan or prayer ceremony took place, together with the names of illustrious Parsis, he was there mentioned. I mean, this is dating back to Cyrus the Great, and from that time the Zoroastrians were prominent, and in each prayer their names are recited. So among them, Faridun Jangalwala's name is also taken. So he attained not only prominence in life but after death also.
After that, yes. What a genius! Great, Bapsi. I am so grateful for this time that you have given us. And I would like to say something at the end, because I'm a big Bard fan. A thing of beauty. I would like to give, in your honor, I would like to say this. A thing of beauty is a joy forever, and its loveliness increases. It shall never pass into nothingness. That's you. That's you. You are such a treat for us.
Sweetheart, you are so kind and so warm, and you have such an in-depth understanding of literature.
Bless you.
I loved that interview, Tahseen. Thank you so very much. God bless you. Wa alaikum salam.